In March of 1964, 4 men from the United States Army Corps of Engineers walked into the largest cave system on Earth, carrying survey instruments and 3 days of rations. What they found 60 feet past the last marker on the federal map never appeared in any official history of Mammoth Cave National Park. You are hearing about it only because one of those men wrote it down for his grandchildren 27 years later. The Bootprints were Army issue, and Sergeant Ray Cooper knew it before he finished kneeling. He had spent 19 years looking at the underside of Army boots, his own, his men's, and the ones that came back on stretchers in Korea with the soles worn through. What was pressed into the wet clay of that passage floor was a military sole, chevron tread, standard issue, in a section of cave the Park Service labeled unexplored. That was the first problem. The second was that the print was fresh. Cooper knew a footprint in cave clay could sit undisturbed 1,000 years, but this one had water still standing in the heel, seeped up the way it does in the first hour after weight comes off the ground, and Cooper had watched enough tracks settle to know what 1 hour looked like. The third problem was the direction. He put his light down the passage where the prints led, inward, deeper, away from every mapped route and marked exit, into a place no route existed to reach. "Lieutenant," he said, and he kept his voice level because he had learned in 2 wars that a man's voice comes out of him before his judgment does. "You will want to see this." Since 1961, the Office of Civil Defense had been cataloguing tunnels, mine shafts and caverns for fallout shelter capacity, against the day the Cold War produced what everyone had spent a decade preparing for. Mammoth Cave was the largest shelter volume in the eastern United States. First Lieutenant David Aldrich, 29, led the survey. Cooper, 42, was the only man on the team who had been shot at, ashore at Anzio at 19 and back in at Incheon as a sergeant. The others were Corporal Thomas Webb, 23, on the instruments, and Private First Class Frank Morrison, 20, who had never been underground in his life. They were guided for 4 days by a 58-year-old Kentuckian named Walter Boone, whose father and grandfather had guided in that cave before him. Boone knew it the way Cooper knew boots. On the 5th day at a junction called Bishop's Turn, where the maps ended in a hand-drawn notation reading unexplored beyond this point, Boone stopped. "This is where I go back," he said. Aldrich had authorization to survey past the mapped sections. He had assumed the guide would come. He asked why. "Park Service does not guide past the survey," Boone said. "That is the official reason, and it is true. The other is that my daddy guided here 40 years, and he told me one thing about this cave I never forgot. He said Mammoth is bigger than anybody knows, and the men who go past the markers looking for the rest of it do not always come out the same way they went in. I am not telling you not to go. I am telling you why I am not going with you." Aldrich thanked him. Boone gave them a bearing back to the junction and went toward the light. They went the other way into corridors 40 feet wide, running level for a mile at a stretch, floored in gypsum-crusted sediment that takes an impression and holds it indefinitely. On the morning of the 3rd day, 60 feet past a survey stake his own team had driven the night before, Cooper found the prints. "How many?" Aldrich asked. "1 man. Steady pace. Not hurrying, not lost. A man who is lost stops and turns, and you see it in the ground. This fellow walks like he knows where he is going." Aldrich looked at his own boot, then at the print. Both chevron cut, both Army. But the spacing was wrong and the heel was wrong in the way manufacturing changes make things wrong across a decade. Webb said the thing nobody wanted said. "Sir, we are the only people cleared past the markers. There is not supposed to be anybody within 4 miles of this position." "I know," Aldrich said. "So who is that?" The correct decision, the one the manual supported, was to log it, withdraw, and report an unauthorized person in a restricted section of a national park. He made a different decision and wrote his reasoning that night with the precision of a man who knew he might have to defend it. Fresh sign indicates a man moving deeper into unmapped passage without support or resupply. If he is a civilian, he is in mortal danger. If he is military, he is unaccounted for. I am aware this may be an error. They followed the prints for 11 hours across 2 days. The prints never wandered, never doubled back, never showed the hesitation of a man on unfamiliar ground. Where the floor gave way into a pit Webb's light could not bottom, They held the exact seam of solid rock at the edge, 1.5 feet of safe ground with no way to know it was safe without already knowing. And they stayed fresh. Cooper brought it to Aldrich on the second night. Lo, with the other two out of earshot. We have been on this sign a day and a half and we have not gained on him. That is not the part that bothers me. The part that bothers me is that the prints do not age. The first one had water standing in it. 1 hour old, maybe less. The one I looked at 40 minutes ago had water standing in it. 1 hour old, maybe less. He let it sit in the dark. We have walked a day and a half behind a man who has always been 1 hour in front of us. That is not how tracking works. That is not how anything works. On the morning of the third day of pursuit, they found the chamber. 200 feet long, 80 wide, a ceiling that vaulted beyond the reach of their lights. And in it, arranged on the dry floor with the geometric discipline only an institution produces, was a camp, not a bivouac. An installation. Wooden crates in stacked rows stenciled with War Department markings, 40 folding cots in ranks, a field kitchen, 2 generators, wire running to fixtures on the limestone. Every crate carried the same dates, 1942, 1943. The arithmetic said that during the Second World War, the United States Army had built a facility of substantial size in a section of Mammoth Cave still marked on federal maps as unexplored, had walked away from it, and had left no record any officer running a survey 21 years later was given access to. Webb found the logbook on a field desk near the center. Aldrich read it aloud, because reading it silently seemed, in that room, like a thing a man should not do alone. Detail of 38 arrived 1400 hours. Survey party out at 0600, returned 1900, 1.4 miles of new passage recorded. They had been surveying. In 1942, 38 men had lived in the unmapped depths of Mammoth Cave for 11 months, extending the limits of the largest cave system on Earth in secret, in the middle of a world war. Why? Morrison said. It was the first thing he had said in an hour. We needed men, we needed everything. Why send 38 men into a cave in Kentucky in 1942? Shelter, Aldrich said. Same reason we are here. If the war went bad in a way nobody wanted to say out loud, somebody needed a hole in the ground big enough to put a government in. He turned a page. That does not explain why none of this is in any record I was given. The entries ran to September of 1943, and then they changed. Not dramatically. That was what made them difficult to read. The hand stayed firm, and the vocabulary stayed military, and threaded through it was something else. Survey Party 3 reports sign of prior passage at the 2.1 mile mark. Bootprints, not ours. Pattern does not match issue. Aldrich stopped. Cooper said very quietly, "Read it again, sir." He read it again, then read forward. Party 3 followed sign 4 hours. Sign remained fresh throughout. Did not close distance. Commanding officer ordered pursuit discontinued. Order not obeyed by Sergeant Halloran, who departed 0430 with light and 3 days of rations. Search parties out. Day 4. No sign of Halloran except his own boot prints, which continue inward and remain fresh. We have followed them 9 miles. Day 6. Discontinued search. Recommend closure of station. The final entry was dated the 14th of October 1943 in a different hand, shakier, hurried. A man writing something down, because writing it down was the only thing left he knew how to do. Station is being evacuated on order. Equipment left in place. I am the last man out, and I am writing this for whoever comes after, because the official report will not say any of it. We came down here to map a cave, and found that somebody had already mapped it. Bootprints in an army tread no depot ever issued, always 1 hour ahead of us, no matter how long we walked. We followed them 9 miles into passages no man has surveyed, and they never got older and they never turned back. Halloran went after them and did not come back. He was a good sergeant, and I will not write what I think happened to him, because I do not know, and a man should not write what he does not know. In 11 months down here I formed an opinion I cannot support and cannot shake. This cave is walked, somebody walks it. Somebody has been walking it a long time, and will be walking it after we are gone. And when men go past the markers, that somebody walks ahead of them 1 hour ahead always, and leaves a trail a man can follow as far as he is willing to go. I do not think it means us harm. 11 months, and it never once came to us. It only ever went ahead. But it is patient in a way we are not built to understand, to whoever finds this. The cave is bigger than the maps, and it will still be here when you need it. Use it for shelter if the day comes. But when you get past the last marker and find a bootprint with water still standing in the heel, turn around, log it, report it, go home. Do not do what Halloran did. Halloran was braver than me, and I have thought about that every day since, and I have decided this was one time when brave was the wrong thing to be. Master Sergeant R. Boone, 14th of October, 1943. Aldrich closed the book. Nobody spoke for a considerable time. It was Cooper who eventually said the name aloud. Boone. Our guide's name is Boone. They went out. They logged the position, photographed the installation, took the logbook, and walked their own route back without following those prints one step further. On the second day, at a junction they had passed on the way in, Cooper stopped and put his light on the floor, then said nothing, and kept walking. Aldrich, who had seen what he saw, said nothing either. There had been a boot print, chevron tread, wrong spacing, wrong heel, water standing in it. Walter Boone was waiting at Bishop's turn when they came out, sitting on a rock with a lantern, and Aldrich understood from the way he stood that he had been waiting there some part of every day they were gone. "You went past the markers," Boone said. "You find anything?" Aldrich thought about the logbook in his pack and the name on the last entry. "Your father," he said. "Was he in the army?" "Down here." Boone looked at him a long moment, then picked up his lantern. He came home in 1944 and guided this cave another 30 years and never once took a party past a marker. You want to know if he came out different? What I know is that he came out and that he spent the rest of his life standing at that junction, telling people to turn around. Aldrich's report described a substantial unmapped shelter volume beyond the surveyed limits of the cave, and a classified annex described the installation. The logbook was requisitioned by an office his own chain of command could not identify to him. Two men who gave no affiliations told him the station had been an authorized War Department activity and that his account required no further action. He asked about Sergeant Halloran. He was told personnel matters from that period were outside the scope of the meeting. Aldrich served another 11 years and retired a major. He never returned to Mammoth Cave. In 1991, he wrote a 14-page account of the survey for his family, the only reason any version of it survives. I have thought for 27 years about a decision I made in a cave in Kentucky when I was 29, which was the decision to turn around. I have never been certain it was courage, and I have long suspected it was not. A master sergeant I never met wrote a letter in 1943 to whoever came next. I was whoever came next, and I had the sense to take it. Boone's father came home. Halloran did not. The difference between them is that one treated a boot print as a thing to report, and the other treated it as a thing to follow. There are things in this country older than the country. Men have found some of them. The ones who came home were, without exception, the ones who wrote down what they found and walked back toward the light. Whoever comes next. The cave is still there. It is still bigger than the maps, and somebody is still 1 hour ahead of you. Turn around.